Welcome to In Dark Places, the choice of a new generation. We got a fun show planned for you here this week. Jimmy Petonito, Mr. Haunted, is here live via satellite. When I was putting this episode together, I found 5 different EVPs during our conversation. So, I thought it might be fun while you're listening. You can try to find the EVPs that I found. Maybe you can find some that I didn't hear. But I know of 5. Jimmy is the host of the wildly popular internet radio show, The Haunted Chronicles, along with Miss Jennifer Runyon. You can hear the archives at paramaniaradio.com. Jimmy is the co-author of Phantom Messages with his pal, Bill Hall. Even though he's way up in Connecticut, he's been a very dear friend of mine over the years. I'm glad to finally have him here live and in color. Mr. Haunted, Jimmy Petonito.
Wow, what a great intro. Thank you.
Hey, how are you, Jimmy?
Oh, you want to know how I am? Well, Junebug, I'm happier than a green-crested mountain warbler skipping through a glistening stream in the Twin Falls, Idaho region, tossing candy corns and circus peanuts to his waterfowl friends, whilst humming the tune to the Love Boat like he's Arthur Fonzarelli or something.
Wow, that's pretty happy.
Thank you for asking.
And, we were mentioning before that you were on the Haunted Chronicles in 2017.
That's crazy, ain't it? March 31st, 2017.
Yeah. Well, we're back together again. See what happens?
We were just kids back then.
I know. Wait, I got to tell you something. We always talk about stories from when we were kids.
Yeah.
We always go off topic. My grandmother, I was thinking of things my grandmother used to say to me. And I remember once, like when she's cooking or something, I was like, when's it going to be ready? When's it going to be ready? And she says, Jimmy, keep your shirt on. And I was like, where did that expression come from? We're like, and anybody that was impatient, they start ripping off their shirts. Like, I don't know.
I've never heard that one before.
Anyways, keep your shirt on, listeners. More's coming.
Jimmy, what have you been doing for fun during the apocalypse?
Well, during the apocalypse, we just had a great event yesterday. We had the Connecticut Horror Fest in town, and I had a vendor table there, and they had like picture opportunities, and you can meet some celebrities from horror movies. They had Shaggy from Scooby-Doo movie, Ski Ulrich from was it the Craft? They had the girl Rochelle from The Craft. They had a bunch of people. It was fun.
That's cool. Yesterday was supposed to have been the Mothman Festival, but we didn't have that again.
That's one thing on my bucket list. I really want to go to Mothman.
It's great. I don't know. I've been to a few different like Cryptic Corner and stuff like that, and nothing's as cool as the Mothman Festival. So I hope they bring that back.
Yeah, I just want my picture opportunity in front of that statue.
So you trained under Ed and Lorraine Warren when you were just a wee lad. How did you guys meet?
Well, I was to save this is a show. This is a story for a whole nother show. But the leading up to it part. But anyway, long story short, I was taking pictures in this supposedly haunted cemetery around here for a year at least, because I was trying to capture the white lady that's urban legend around here that supposedly walks around the cemetery. And I've been there so much and I got so many weird photographs that I had a whole photo album of the of weird stuff in the cemetery, weird mists, and some things look like figures, and I just collected them. And I was kind of before the internet, so I had nowhere to share them or and nowhere to post them. I just had them in a book. So the place was so popular, you go there on a weekend and there'd be a few people up there taking pictures and recordings. And one night I met this woman, Debbie, who said, "Hey, what do you got there?" And I showed her my pictures, and she goes, "Oh, Ed and Lorraine Warren would love to see these. I work with them, and I've seen them before. During the college when they do the college lectures." And she goes, "Next Monday night we're having a meeting." She goes, she invited me to go along, and then I showed them my pictures, and then I started working with her group. That was like 91 or 92. Buckle my shoe.
That's awesome. And we don't have anything cool like that going on around here. It's just all based around coal, pretty much. They do tours of coal mines and just weird coal-related things here. But it's starting to open up. There's more ghosty things going on now. The hospital where I was born has become a popular haunted hospital around the area now. They do a lot of tours and stuff around Halloween.
Did the activity start when you were born?
It could have.
You're going to be an urban legend one day. The ghost of Junebug. The ghost of Junebug Hospital.
Usually I've got like a pretty good knack of, I don't know, like a psychic intuition or whatever around haunted houses. I can feel if there's anything like that around, but I've never felt anything around that hospital. I don't know why that is, but supposedly it's really haunted. I've had a couple of friends tell me some stories they've had going on there, and it's been on a couple of shows on the Travel Channel and stuff.
You know what it's like? What's that movie with Bruce Willis when he was the ghost with the little boy?
Oh, The Sixth Sense.
The Sixth Sense. You know why you don't sense anything at that hospital? Because you sense things other places. Because it's like a twist at the end. Junebug, you are the ghost. You're walking around not sensing anything. You're the one.
It could be. We had the guy that played the original Michael Myers. He was there last year for Halloween. I think he's coming back this year too. The hospital on College Road, that's what they're calling it. It closed back around 85, I think. It's been just sitting there empty all these years. And me and my sister were both born there. Is
it a place where people go to investigate an abandoned building, or they really don't want people in there, or is it an attraction?
Yeah, they'll have people come in and spend the night and stuff, and record the EVPs and everything. It's pretty neat.
Very scary.
So you've been recording some bits for us these last few weeks. I've been having a lot of fun with that. We're getting a lot of good positive feedback on them.
You know, you do a really nice job on those, because it sounds like I'm right there with you in the studio. You're like, hey, back to you, Jimmy.
Yeah, it's been fun.
I'm here live now, folks.
Live and live in color. So starting next week, we're going to start doing the Cryptic Corner. What would you say is your favorite cryptid?
I gotta love the Mothman. Is he considered a cryptid?
Yeah.
I love the Mothman story.
He's good people. I like him.
There's so many witnesses and a cool, unique character, and he still apparently appears once in a while. Do you see that the 9/11 footage of there's some Mothman?
Yeah, I saw that.
I don't know if that's real or not, but whatever. His legend's still around, and usually before a tragedy.
Yeah, one of my favorite topics you guys would always cover on the Haunted Chronicles were the urban legends. You've prepared some urban legends for us today.
I have prepared some urban legends. Well, I found some crazy urban legends that weren't as well known, but I'll start off with this one as an appetizer of sorts, because everyone's kind of heard about this one, I think. And it's one of the originals, I think. And there's lots of variations to it, but I'll just give the basics. The Bloody Mary game. Well, yep. One of the most famous urban legends is the Bloody Mary game. Lots of origin stories, the variations of the game have been told, but here's some of them. So if you go into the bathroom and look into the mirror with the lights off, with a single candle burning, and say Bloody Mary 3 times, some say 13 times, a woman will appear and scratch your face off. What a treat. Another version, some say, dark room and mirror, same thing. Say Hail Mary 7 times, you will see Satan's face in the mirror, and some claim the mirror would also turn red. And yet another version, if you start to whisper Bloody Mary, and your face getting louder each time, and then you should also be spinning around while saying this, and then take a glimpse into the mirror each pass. Around the 13th or so rotation, you'll see Mary's face.
I have never tried that game. I was always kind of afraid. I've heard people at school that they would talk about it and stuff, but I never tried it myself.
I'm terrified. I would never do something. Why would you want to do some sort of thing?
That's crazy.
Because we'll see it. And then what?
Yeah, I don't think I want to see nothing like that and scratching my face off and stuff. It's just, it don't seem fun.
I mean, it's a great story for your friends in the morning, but not for me.
I've got one here that's kind of native to West Virginia at the Algae River Monster. Let's see, it's in Monongalia County. That's where it is, up northern West Virginia. It says that something may be lurking deep in the waters of the Monongalia River, waiting for a lonely student or a deer to pass by. The legend of a river creature with a 15-foot tail was once told by natives to ward away white settlers along the Monongalia and Ohio rivers. But a documented sighting may hold proof that the beast is more than fiction. The monster was named the Algae by the natives, who used to protect their homeland. It is rumored that it looks like a large mutated turtle with two heads, keeping to the water. It keeps to the water by day.
Hey, Junebug! Do you think you got made fun of in school?
Yeah, I bet this guy had it tough. I thought I had a rough time in school, but this guy.
Hey, Ma, there's this turtle in school with two heads.
He is said to slide up on the land by night to hunt. He is said to feed on deer in the nighttime, and he waits for them in the brush when a victim passes by. He uses his tail to sweep the deer into the water and devour it. So it's a turtle with a long tail.
They said that turtle got made fun of so much in school that he was only a shell of his former self. I heard. I'm sorry. This is supposed to be conducted in a serious manner. I'm sorry.
It may sound like just a tall tale, but the WVU manuscript collection holds the details of an accountant who wrote a letter talking about a man staying at Fort Hammer. The man saw the creature in action and ran back to the fort to gather the men that he was staying with. The report ends with a group of men clubbing the creature to death. But the legend lives on. Tracks and sightings of the large alligator figure have been reported all along the Monongalia River in recent years. And in April of 2015, an inflow of reports of an alligator-like creature began to surface, yet no one could catch the creature. Regardless if you believe the creature was killed, something lives on the river. Keep your eyes peeled on your next riverside walk, where you might catch it on a day when he's craving a little something different than a deer.
I'm familiar with this little monster a little bit. And they said, it might have its basis in prehistoric animals. There were giant turtles in that area if you go through back in time. I didn't know that. West Virginia storyteller Jason Burns explained that.
Oh. That's
terrifying.
So he's a turtle with an alligator tail, I guess.
I never heard of that one. That is a really good one. I don't know if I could top that one there. But I have a story here of the legend of Knock Knock Road.
I have not, no.
Let me tell you. This legend began back in the 1940s when a story went around that a little girl was struck and killed by a careless driver. Now her spirit haunts drivers on Strasburg Road, now known as Knock Knock Road, in Detroit, Michigan. Some say if you stop at a certain traffic light on Knock Knock Road, you will see the ghost of a little girl just standing by the road. And she'll slowly walk over to your car, will knock on your car window to get your attention. And people believe that she is studying your face to see if you match the face of the motorist that killed her, as she's still searching for her killer. Knock Knock Road. Thank you.
Where was that one based at?
That was out of Detroit, Michigan. It was like a suburb of Detroit.
Creepy. I've got another urban legend from the same county. I just realized that Monongalia County. I've never been there. So it's way up north.
Is this where the turtle monster is?
Yeah, it's in the same neighborhood, I guess.
We got to take a field trip.
The Headless Students of Monongalia County. While hitchhiking back to their Evansdale dorms in 1970, 2 female WVU students disappeared and were found headless only months later. It is believed that they were on their way back from a movie when they were picked up downtown and never made it home. The decapitated bodies of the 2 girls were discovered along an old mining road near Fairmont. And though the murderer confessed years later, their heads were never found, and the case was never put to rest. Witnesses say they've heard growling, screams, whistles, and all kinds of other noises coming from the nearby woods of the Cheat Lake area, where the girls reportedly wander in search of their heads.
Holy mackerel!
Car accidents in the area have been blamed on shadowy apparitions of the 2 girls running back and forth through the woods. Yeah, it's time for a road trip. We got to check that out.
I thought it was maybe going to tie in that the giant turtle monster was chomping their heads off.
Yeah,
but somebody did admit to this crime, this horrid crime.
Maybe he is an accomplice of the turtle.
They're like a Batman and Robin team, but on the bad side. All right, very scary. So we have to have humor in these bad times. It's very serious stories, and they're upsetting to some individuals.
Yeah, we're just kind of funning. We don't mean any harm by it.
You know what, Junebug? I just got something.
Hey, what's up?
It just came across my desk. Breaking news.
Breaking news.
Virginia teen dies 2 days after writing on Facebook that she had summoned a deity named Papa Legba while practicing Haitian voodoo spells. 19-year-old Caitlin Reston was found dead after she allegedly drowned in the bathtub. Reston's unexpected death came just 2 days after she claimed to have seen Papa Legba after a summoning spell people had warned her not to try. Caitlin was part of a group on social media that practices spells, and one day she thought it would be a great idea to experiment with voodoo to get back at an ex-friend of hers. Well, when people warned her not to play with that stuff, she responded on Twitter saying, "There's nothing wrong with trying something new." Oh, yes, there is, Caitlin. 3 weeks later, little Caitlin posted she saw Papa Legba and was scared. 2 days later, she passed away unexpectedly in her mother's home, and her obituary noted that she was a proud new mom to a 5-month-old baby. So, rest in peace, Caitlin.
Not good.
That's her last name. See what they did there? Caitlin Reston. And that was breaking news.
I've got one that's a little more well-known, the TransAllegheny Lunatic Asylum up in Lewis.
I've heard of that, but yeah.
Up in Lewis County. I've seen it on a bunch of shows, too. I've never been there.
I've heard of it, but I don't know the story. I'd love to hear the story.
It is allegedly haunted by its former patients. Construction of the hospital was authorized by the Virginia General Assembly in 1858 and was halted by the Civil War. The building is the largest hand-cut stone masonry in the nation. It opened in 1864 and was operated by the West Virginia government. It was originally designed to hold 250 patients, but at its peak, it held more than 2,400 patients in those overcrowded conditions. In 1871, the famous clock tower was completed. The ground's total acreage finished at 666 acres. Due to the changes, it's not good. Due to changes in psychiatric care, as well as the poor building conditions, it closed in 1994. In 2007, the Department of Health and Human Resources auctioned the building off and was purchased by Joe Jordan Today, paranormal activity is often reported. Multiple TV shows such as Ghost Stories and Travel Channel's Ghost Adventures have filmed episodes from inside the asylum. Guided tours of the building are available, and you can spend the night in the building. Tickets can be purchased at TransAllegheny, lunaticasylum.com. Creepy.
Just starting off with the acreage, it was going to be a problem.
That's bad news. They shouldn't do that. Maybe buy one of the neighbors' fence posts or something just to.
If somebody was selling me a property, no matter how good it sounded, and they said it's 666 acres, I'm like, I'm going to pay the full price, but I'm going to give you 1 acre back.
Yeah, I don't think I would do that. It's not good.
Not at all. That's a crazy story. I have a story for you.
Yeah, what's
this is called The Grunch. This one comes out of Louisiana. A lot of stories come out of Louisiana. And for someone who says there's nothing ghost-wise going on in your area of the woods, all your stories are from West Virginia. You got some good ones. But this one comes out of Louisiana. In the early days of New Orleans, there was a road called Grunch Road. This road went deep into the swampy woods before coming to a dead end. And this is where the Grunch people lived. They were a strange hybrid of albinos and dwarfs that were forced away from society and made to live in their own little community. And many people didn't believe the story until people started disappearing near Grunch Road, like lately. And neighboring farmers report their animals missing or found dead and drained of blood, believed by the hands of the Grunch people. That's it. Isn't that terrifying?
That's
the
scary.
Grunch.
Have you ever heard of the Sodder children disappearance?
No, where was it?
It's in Fayette County, West Virginia, also up north.
No,
India.
I'd like to hear about that.
On Christmas of 1943, the family of 2 Italian immigrants who settled in Fayetteville suffered an unimaginable tragedy, a fire that burned their house to the ground. George and Jenny, the parents, and a few of their children managed to escape the flames, but that wasn't true for all the Sodders. 5 of their children, ranging between 5 and 14 years old, were lost. For the children that were lost, there are some serious questions as to how it happened. The official cause of the Sodder children's death was the fire, an electrical fire, but the Sodder family, many of its neighbors, and plenty more on the internet afterward would disagree. What seemed like an incredible, unlucky tragedy might actually be part of a group of murders or kidnappings. George, as an Italian immigrant, harbored negative news of Benito Mussolini and his government. Some believe his outspoken criticism triggered the disaster at the hands of the Sicilian mafia, who perhaps kidnapped the children before the fire was even started. The evidence of this is the lack of evidence for the children's death in the flames. Depending on the account of the story, there were no remains found of the children in the house fire. This opened a search conducted by the family, along with federal and state efforts, thinking at least some of the children were still alive. Since the investigation ended, but the mystery itself still lives on, Sylvia Sodder Paxton, the last of the surviving children, has continued her efforts in publicizing the mystery in hopes of an answer.
Now, I want to see if I misunderstood you or not. Were they burned?
They don't really know. They said that they must have burned up in the fire, but nobody ever found any kind of evidence that they were burned in the fire.
And it was Christmas?
Yeah, Christmas Day.
I'm just saying, Junebug, remember the terrible photos of spontaneous combustion you saw in books as a kid with the shoe just left there with all ashes around it? Imagine if these poor little Sodder children on Christmas morning were victims of that, and like little like all the children are saying, "Hey, what'd you get?" And like, "Well, I got a Light Bright. What'd you get? I got a Evil Knievel stunt cycle. What'd you get? I'm up in smoke." And then they just combusted.
Maybe they were so mad by their presence that just kind of ignited him.
It snapped. Wow. That's a crazy story, and it's still unsolved.
Yeah, that's crazy. 1943.
I have a little story that's in nearby South Carolina. It's called the Grave of Alice Flagg. There is a gravestone at All Saints Cemetery in Pawleys Island in South Carolina that has a single word on the gravestone, Alice. But locals who visit the grave know it belongs to Alice Flagg, who died in 1834 of a broken heart. They also know if you visit at night, you may see the ghostly figure of Alice herself searching for something with one hand pressed to her chest. According to legend, she fell in love with someone her family deemed unsuitable for her and sent her away after she refused to give up her beloved. They got engaged in secret anyways, but her brother discovered her engagement ring, which she wore on a ribbon around her neck. So her brother tore it off her neck, and it was never returned to Alice. Alice died soon afterwards, and to this day, her spirit wanders the cemetery where she was buried, forever seeking the token of her love that was so cruelly taken from her. They say that if you circle her gravestone 6 times counterclockwise, then 6 times clockwise, stop right where the A is in her name on the headstone, and wave a gift or leave a gift for her, any wish you will make will come true.
So she's
You know what's funny about these stories? I remember a book I got as a kid. It was some generic ghost book for kids, and it said if you go to any gravestone, circle the gravestone 7 times, like a ghost will appear, and then you go do it. Like, why did we even try these things? What's wrong with us?
Yeah, who was the person that first came up with that? I think I'm going to circle that grave 6 times just to see what happens.
Exactly. Or the Bloody Mary. You have to do it 13 times, or else it's not going to come out. I don't know. That's crazy.
It's kind of funny because I found a story almost identical to that. Weird. Allison's Grave and the Headless Apparition. A grave marked Allison at Mosquito Valley Cemetery, just outside Du Bois Town, has been the source of ghostly legends for years in Lycoming County. Du Bois Town, Pennsylvania. One of the most persistent urban legends in Lycoming County is the tale of Allison's Grave. Many teenagers over the years have visited the tombstone at Mosquito Valley Cemetery, hoping to get a thrill or a scare from the sight of the apparition of the headless woman. A lot of headless people. According to legend, the apparition of a decapitated woman walks the roadside by the grave. She shows up after dark and has supposedly scared generations of people, curious as to whether the legend is true or not. So who was Allison? There are several theories. One theory, presented in the book Weird Pennsylvania by Matt Lake, is that Allison was a World War I nurse whose plane was shot down. During the accident, she was decapitated and her remains were sent to the cemetery along Mosquito Valley Road. Another theory is that the grave holds the body of Edna Allison, who died in a plane crash near Aspen, Colorado in 1964. According to Lycoming County court documents and land deeds, the woman's name was Edna A. Bogert Allison, the second wife of Herbert Allison. The couple, who had one son, divorced in 1958 after almost 20 years of marriage. Edna took over a sand quarry business as well as a second home as part of the divorce settlement. Both were located in Nassau, the Bahamas. In June 1964, Edna left Williamsport on a commercial airline flight to Phoenix, Arizona. She then traveled to Aspen, Colorado, and boarded a Cessna 310 for a flight to Dallas, which was a stopover on her way to her final destination of the Bahamas. Edna was heading to the Bahamas to attend a business conference in Nassau in connection with her rock and mineral interests, according to an article in the July 1st, 1964 edition of the Williamsport Sun-Gazette. However, the Cessna failed to arrive in Dallas. The Colorado Civil Air Patrol searched the mountainous terrain near Aspen, but could not locate the plane. The search for the plane was reportedly difficult due to heavy thunderstorms and high winds. Almost 4 months later, the plane was found, along with the badly decomposed body of Edna Allison. Her remains were cremated and sent to family back home. Edna's brother, Howard Bogart, who also lived in Mosquito Valley, spread her ashes at Mosquito Valley Cemetery. A small gravestone was erected to mark her memory. Later, a larger headstone with the name Allison inscribed on it was installed. No one knows who Allison really is, but the small graveyard will most likely continue to attract future generations of thrill seekers, hoping to see or hear something at the grave. So it's crazy.
What's up with these Allisons?
As you were reading yours, I was like, wait a minute, I've got one like that.
Hey, you know something? You know what just came across my news feed? Breaking news!
Hey.
This was just reported September 16th. Listen
A couple days ago.
Hundreds of migrating songbirds crash into New York City skyscrapers.
What?
No, hundreds of songbirds. I mean, Junebug, these are songbirds. You know, they're singing for us with joy and glee. They're not some common pigeon or a similar bird of that ilk, but they're freaking songbirds. Okay, so hundreds of these songbirds were migrating through New York City this week. They died after crashing into the city glass towers. A massive casualty event spotlighted by a New York City Audubon volunteers' tweets showing the World Trade Center littered with bird carcasses. So this week's avian death toll was particularly high, but bird strikes on Manhattan skyscrapers are a persistent problem, apparently, that the Audubon Group has documented for years. A spokesperson said that stormy weather Monday night into Tuesday contributed to the deaths. And I'll do my impression of the representative for you. We had a big storm and sort of weird weather and lots of birds, and that's the perfect combination that can lead to bird window collisions. The volunteer found nearly 300 birds on sidewalks surrounding the new World Trade Center towers, said the experience was overwhelming. It wasn't the last flight for all the birds that crashed. Some survived. So about 300 birds perished, but a total of 77 birds were taken to a rehab facility. Now, Junebug, imagine this. Imagine the site. It's a rehab facility. They probably got these little tiny beds, right? And these little songbirds are all laid up. You know, they probably have their little leg up in a cast, perhaps, with little headache bags on. and the staff gave the birds food, fluids, and other anti-inflammatories, and then released them. It's tragic, but a little happy ending there.
That's crazy.
I can't get a picture out of my head of the rehab facility.
Yeah, I keep picturing like a Tom and Jerry cartoon or something where they got the little stick propped up under their arm.
Yeah. the little, like I said, with the little thermometers in, there's little headache bags on, relaxing. So I'm happy they took care of some of those birds.
That's crazy though. I've been seeing a bunch of mass animal deaths like that here lately. Fish washing up and birds just dropping dead out of the sky. Makes you wonder what's going on.
How many times are you eating dinner with your family? You're eating a nice dinner and you're boom, and you're like, it's a bird just in the window. Why does that happen?
That's crazy.
I mean, they have these superpowers that they're innate in their brain to fly south in the winter, and they have all these secret powers and stuff, and they can't navigate a window.
We did that 4 or 5 years ago, we were in the living room and a bird flew into the kitchen window like that. It's crazy.
It's terrifying. And then there's a little bunch of feathers stuck to it. and then you go over and look down and you're like, oh. Nobody would believe we're animal lovers, but we are. We're just sad.
Me and Brandon were going out on one of our little road trips one day, and a big, I guess like a hawk, flew out in front of the guy that was driving in front of us, and it slammed into the cab of his truck, and all we saw was just like a big puff of feathers going everywhere. And Brandon looked up and was like, "What was that?" And I said, "It was a bird, I think." And I looked like over to the right, and the bird was just flying off like it never even happened. So he's indestructible.
I'm all right. I'll be okay.
Shake it off in the
You
morning.
got hit by a truck. Wait, I got two things that reminded me of now. Do you remember Randy Johnson's pitch?
Oh, yeah.
You guys got to look this up on YouTube. But Randy Johnson, who's about almost 7 feet tall, pitcher for the Yankees at the time, threw a fastball, and then it was a perfectly timed. A bird was coming in front of the pitch, and the bird just exploded right into nothing. It was
How
so
crazy
sad.
is it?
That was a foul ball. Get it?
You can see all the other his teammates and stuff just kind of looking in disbelief of what in the world happened.
all his bird friends are like, what just happened to Johnny? Wow. I don't know what just happened there, but
Have you ever heard
stay on course.
This is the story of the Bunny Man.
I've heard of it, but don't remember it or know the story. I'd love to hear the Bunny Man story.
In Fairfax County, Virginia. Often with urban legends, there's the story and there's the truth. That's what makes the tale of Fairfax County's Bunny Man so eerie, so bizarre, and so downright creepy. While there are several variations of the urban legend splashed across the furthest reaches of the internet, the true story of the Bunny Man may never actually be weirder. A creepy guy on Halloween, dressed oddly, throwing hatchets at people. It's just too bizarre to possibly be true, says Fairfax County archivist Brian Conley, but it is. For decades, the legend of the Bunny Man has captivated Northern Virginia fear seekers. Conley first heard of the tale when he was an area youngster in the 70s. It showed up in a 1973 University of Maryland undergrad's class paper. It has been told and retold by local teens for years. While the legend has evolved and changed through the years, it follows these lines. In the early 20th century, deep in the woods that divided the town of Clifton from Fairfax Station, there was an asylum for the insane. At some point, the asylum closed and the residents were piled into a bus bound for Lorton Prison. On the way there, the bus swerved and crashed. Many of the convicts escaped, but were caught, save one, Douglas Griffin. While searching for him, authorities found a trail of half-eaten, gutted bunnies, with many hanging from what was then called Fairfax Station Bridge. For months the police searched for Griffin, but he was never found. Then, on Halloween night, several teens were hanging out under the bridge. At the stroke of midnight, they were attacked. The next morning, they were found hanging from the bridge, gutted like bunnies. To this day, it's said that if you are at Bunny Man Bridge at midnight on Halloween night, you too will meet the fate of those teens and rabbits. So while that story is kind of weird, the real story is even more bizarre. On October 18, 1970, the Washington Post reported that Air Force Academy cadet Robert Bennett and his fiancée were sitting in a car on the 5400 block of Guinea Road in Fairfax around midnight near Bennett's uncle's house when a man dressed in a white suit with long bunny ears appeared. He yelled at the people that were on his private property, and he had their tag number. Then he threw a wood-handled hatchet through the front car window. Luckily, neither of them was hurt. 2 weeks later, the bunny man showed up again, about a block away from his original sighting, according to an October 31st Washington Post article. Private security guard Paul Phillips spotted the man-beast on the front porch of a new but unoccupied house. He was holding an axe. In the piece, Phillips recounted what happened next. I started talking to him, and that's when he started chopping, taking several swings at the pole on the porch. He threatened Phillips. "All you people trespass around here. If you don't get out of here, I'm going to bust you on the head."
What a treat. You had a lot of fun stuff over there. Okay, this urban legend comes out of Kansas. In Stull Cemetery in Kansas is better known as the doorway to hell. Legend says the devil himself chose this cemetery as his entrance to the underworld, or from the underworld to our own. There is a tombstone. Okay, there's a tombstone next to a tree that they used to use to hang condemned witches back in the day. The only word on this tombstone is witch. And this tombstone supposedly is the marker of the burial place of Satan's own child, a creature that was born deformed and covered in wolf hair. There are reports of random fires breaking out at different areas of the cemetery. And Pope John Paul II was said to divert his private plane around the cemetery because it was so tainted by evil.
This one is called The Legend of Screaming Jenny in Jefferson County, West Virginia. Going along the railroad tracks on a late night in Harpers Ferry, West Virginia, might just provide one of the most frightening moments of a person's life. Those tracks are the home to the legend of Screaming Jenny, a tragedy that took place in the mid-19th century near the old storage sheds by the Baltimore and Ohio Railroad. The story goes that Jenny, who lived alone in a small shed, didn't have much. She didn't have a family. She was forced to find a job wherever she could work and sustained little money. Her only shelter was a small shed which provided her a place to sleep and a small fireplace. Of little but enough help to keep her warm during the cold winter months. However, one fire she lit turned into a tragedy. It was late in the fall, and she was shivering due to the temperature and drinking broth out of a wooden bowl. A spark from the fire reached her skirt and put her and her clothes into flames. Unfortunately, Jenny didn't notice the flames beginning to surround her. She wasn't aware until they burnt through the wool of her skirt and reached her skin. Jenny then threw her broth all over the flames, but to no avail. She ran outside hoping to find help, but that was also to no avail. She kept screaming and screaming out of horror. Then the end was near. When Jenny moved toward the train tracks, she was a ball of fire and didn't notice the headlights from a train passing on the track. The train would run over her, leading to her tragic passing. 1 month after the accident, a train driver was passing along the same spot where Jenny was killed. It was too late to stop when he noticed a ball of fire, so he stopped when he could. When the driver went back, tried to hopefully aid the victim, nobody was there. And now that same tale strikes on the anniversary of her death every year.
And then this one comes out of Nigeria. This is called the bunk shaker. If any of you listeners have bunk beds, just get rid of it. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. In Nigeria, there's a story about a ghost who terrorizes children in boarding schools. This kids already have enough problems. They're in boarding schools, but the ones who have to sleep in the top bunk. This legend says there's a demonic creature who likes to shake the bunk bed. He starts out gently at first, then gets really aggressive, prompting the person to come down from the top bunk to see what's causing the shaking. Apparently, that's the worst thing that you could do, because the demon wants you to come down from the bed so he can scratch you with his long, yellow, dirty fingernails and drag you under the bed where you'll never be seen again. He laughed.
This one is called The Witch Girl of Pallets Knob. This one is in Kentucky. Just looking at the pictures of young Mary Evelyn Ford's grave feels a bit unnerving, with a series of interlocking white crosses forming a fence around a pit of gravel, and the bars appearing unnaturally bent in some places. Then you hear the alleged backstory. A mother and daughter, both accused of witchcraft and burned at the stake in 1916, with the mother's charred remains being carried to a far-off location, while the daughter was buried in a steel-lined coffin, covered in stone and encased in crosses to prevent her escape. Some have claimed to witness tiny footprints appearing in the gravel, or even a ghostly figure trying to escape the gravesite. Kid ghosts, as we know, are the creepiest ghosts.
I got another one for you. This is called 100 Steps Cemetery. Located in Brazil, Indiana, this cemetery has gained a sinister reputation for a ghostly undertaker. The story goes, as you walk up the many steps to the top of the cemetery, you must count every step. When you reach the top step, you must face the open field, and the ghost of the cemetery's first undertaker will appear. Without saying a word, he will reveal your cause of death to you in a vision. Then you must proceed back down the steps, again, counting them. If the number is different than the first, the vision was true. And as an added treat, if you want to try to get to the top of the cemetery with avoiding the steps, if you want to go around, a ghostly hand will push you to the ground, leaving a red imprint on your back that will last 3 days as a mark of the devil.
Wow.
Nice treat for a little family getaway.
Creepy. This one is called The Cussing Cover. This Smoky Mountain legend tells the story of Mavis and Basil Estep, a married couple who lived in Cades Cove a very long time ago. Mavis was born during a thunderstorm and had a persistent fear of being struck by lightning. She loved to sew, but wouldn't even use her quilting needle during a thunderstorm. One of Mavis's favorite pieces of patchwork was a quilt she made out of one of Basil's old flannel shirts. She called it the Cussing Cover because Basil was wearing it during one of their first fights, where some swearing occurred. Mavis grew ill, and toward the end of her life, she gave Basil permission to remarry, under 2 specific conditions. He was never to sell any of her quilts, and absolutely never place any of those quilts on a metal bed. After Mavis died, Basil married a girl named Truly Jane. Truly Jane and Basil bought a new metal bed to sleep in. One cold night, Truly Jane awoke to find an extra blanket. She chose the Cussing Cover and brought it into their metal bed. Hours later, a rogue bolt of lightning struck the bed and killed Basil Estep. The rest of the cabin was untouched.
Okay, this is not really an urban legend, but it's a story I found that I found interesting. This house was torn down because of its tragic history and possible haunting. This is called the Oklahoma Hex House. In the early 1940s, a woman named Carol Ann Smith lived in a ivy-covered duplex in Tulsa, Oklahoma. 2 young women lived with her. One's named Virginia, one's Netta. Both girls were hexed and turned every penny they made to Carol Ann. They had little day jobs. They turned every penny they made to this Carol Ann. Both girls said they were put under some sort of spell, and that's why they turned over all their money, and they were basically virtual slaves for Miss Smith. So one of the girls' father was even supposedly had a spell put on him, and he was bilked for $17,000. And Miss Smith's other income came from insurance policies taken out on 3 people, including her husband, father, and maid. Authorities finally discovered what Miss Smith was up to, and she pled guilty to some of the charges. Miss Fancy Pants Smith lived very luxuriously, buying cars. She had 46 pairs of shoes. This is 1940. 26 hats, and enough makeup and beauty supplies to stock a drugstore. Meanwhile, the 2 young women slept in the cold basement on orange crates. The Hex house eventually sold and was demolished, with the grounds turned into a parking lot.
I kept thinking about the creepy old guy Kane in Poltergeist and Carol Ann.
I know. I was going to do a TV set joke in there. I couldn't fit it in. Oh, man.
And here's the last one I got. Beware the Lizard Man. Scotland has the Loch Ness Monster. The Pacific Northwest has the Sasquatch. Puerto Rico has the Chupacabra. Nepal has the Yeti. They can't hold a candle to the Lizard Man, a denizen of the swamps surrounding Bishopville, and a connoisseur of delicious chrome trim on automobiles. The Lizard Man is South Carolina's very own homegrown monster. Imagine it, if you can. In the wee dark hours of the morning on June 29th, 1988, a teenage boy was driving home from work when he blew a tire along the edge of scape or swamp. He got out of the car to change the tire when he heard a sound like someone running, getting louder and louder. Suddenly, from the darkness, it emerged. Blazing red eyes, green scaly skin, long black claws on 3 fingers. A staggering 7 feet tall. What else could it be but a lizard man? The boy jumped into his car for safety, but the lizard man attacked the car, ripping off the mirror and gouging the roof of the vehicle. Just 2 weeks later, police were called to the scene of some vandalism. A car not far from the swamp had been attacked in the night. Fenders had been ripped off, the antenna bent. Deep scratches along the body and chrome trim had seemingly been chewed off. Could it be the monster again? Over the course of the summer, more cars in the vicinity of Scape or Swamp were brutally attacked and chewed on, and more people reported seeing an enormous scaly green man lurking in the woods and the swamps. The police were called out, and the sheriff made plaster casts of the enormous 3-toed footprints that were left behind in the thick swamp mud. They considered a call to the FBI, but decided against it. But then, as the cooler days and nights of the fall approached, the lizard man receded back into the swamp as suddenly as he appeared. His summertime reign of terror ended, but a legend was born. Over the decades, there have been sightings on occasion and a smattering of automobile maulings, always within the vicinity of the swamps around Bishopville, but nothing like that summer of 1988, when the lizard man made his presence and appetite for cars known. Visitors to the area around Scape or Swamp are encouraged to remain vigilant, however, for the inevitable return of South Carolina's very own monster.
According to Nigerian legend, there once lived a girl named Aruma who was the most beautiful girl in the kingdom and was very popular for always having the best hairstyles that seemed to change on a daily basis. The boys loved her and the girls envied her. But out of curiosity, many people were constantly asking Aruma where she got her beautiful hairstyles. But every time she was asked, she refused to answer. Legend has it, one night, 2 inquisitive girls followed her home to see how or who made her hair so beautiful all the time. As the 2 young girls peeked in the mud house, they were shocked to see a ghostly sight. A headless Aruma sat down on the floor with her own head in her hands, and 100 spectral hands were hard at work pulling, combing, and pressing her hair into shape. the two girls ran back to town, alerting the townspeople what they had witnessed. The townspeople all set out that night to hunt down the little girl. Were they going to kill her if she get her hair done? When they got to her home, she was nowhere to be found. There was no sight of the little girl, and she was never seen again.
There's a lot of these that have like headless people in them.
A lot of heads rolling around. A lot of heads. One day, all these pissed off heads are going to pop up and haunt everybody.
We'll see you again next week. Thank you, Mr. Haunted, for being on the show.
Oh, thanks for having me on, Junebug.
Yeah, no problem, man. This has been awesome. We got to do it again when our schedules can align.
We will see you next week on In Dark Places.
Me and Jimmy have the 2 worst possible work schedules known to man. We've been planning this for a long time, and it was super hard to get our schedules to come together. If you've got a cool story and you'd like to be a guest on the show, or if you've got a cool urban legend that we didn't talk about here this week, we'd love to hear from you. Send an email to indarkplacespod@hotmail.com. We'll see you again next week. God bless you.